paraphrase Max Kaiser, a real grassroots movement would have been crushed by U.S. anti-terror laws. Both parties are dividing and conquering the American people with a great deal of success. The fact is, people in the Tea Party have been infiltrated by big government Republicans. Sarah Palin is for big government militarization. You can even hear it on terrorism policy. This is why even the Tea Party's actions indicate more of a real fascism-tinged movement. Keep in mind I lean to the right, except the obsession with God.
I'm talking about why our government would spend $4,500 to buy a car that is going to crush and go sit in a junkyard when I've earned that money. The Cash for Clunkers program is broke, but Chuck Schumer is fighting for $2 billion more to keep it going. Chuck Schumer is fighting for $2 billion more of the money that you and I have made. You know, if you spend $1 million a day from the day that Jesus Christ was born on this planet till right now, you would have only spent a little over $7.4 billion. That's God giving us an amen.
I will say this, they have some good ideas. Other than that, I will not support a movement that has leaders who support their own preferred version of tyranny. Sarah Palin, anyone? Bueller?
There's another campaign in America, and this was formed in 2009, and it was ostensibly to deal with the other side of the equation, which is government spending. And this is the Tea Party group. So the headline reads, Tea Party disputes take toll on convention. So later this week, there's a Tea Party Nation meeting in Nashville. And now this is the motto of the Tea Party Nation. Here's from their website. Tea Party Nation, or TPN, is a user-driven group of like-minded people who desire our God-given individual freedoms, which were written out by the Founding Fathers. We believe in limited government, free speech, the Second Amendment, our military, secure borders, and our country.
Well, you know, these Tea Parties need to get spanked. You know, I think they should line them up end to end, buttocks to buttocks, and they should form some kind of global spanking committee from countries that are fed up with these, you know, venal, egotistical, American financial, consumeraholic knuckleheads, and just go on this mad paddling spree and they need a good spanking.
Well, the reason why there's controversy around this is that it was the Tea Party group, many of the members think that they're part of a grassroots organization, and some people think they've joined a grassroots organization. But apparently, according to the founders of Tea Party Nation, they're actually a for-profit situation, and they're charging $549 plus a $9.95 handling fee for this event, and they're paying Sarah Palin $100,000 to speak at the event. Now, Eric Erickson, who is the editor of RedState.com, a very popular right-wing or conservative website, called it scammy. Well, if you look at the schedule for this week, they have all sorts of, their meetings are around organizing tea parties, forming youth groups, and voter registration drives. The very same thing that many people from the right, and this, by the way, this Tea Parties all want, they're like supporting Republican candidates, and their aim is to take over the Republican Party. So they are for big government when it applies to the Republican Party. Remember, George Bush expanded the federal government more than almost any other president before him. He doubled the national debt, and he expanded the military expense so much. And yet they're for that.
You know, Sarah Palin should be on Home Shopping Network. You know, she should be selling those little bracelet and trinkets and doing those types of things. And the idea of their grassroots effort in the United States attached to some successful political movement is absurd, because anything that's really grassroots in America is immediately consigned as a threat using anti-terror laws. In other words, anything free speech is a threat using anti-terror laws. Anything that's actually instrumental in promoting egalitarianism or democracy is attacked with anti-terror laws. So you're not going to find any grassroots movement in America anymore. Even the Olympics, which was that bastion of amateurism, has now gone pro. You know, you don't really find anything anymore that's genuine. And the whole notion of Tea Parties, by the way, harkens back, of course, to the Boston Tea Party, part of the American Revolution, and the idea of no taxation without representation. And those founding fathers in America are rolling in their grave that these people have co-opted that phrase to serve their own selfish interests, have nothing to do with democracy as that's iterated in the documents founding that country.
Well, their very own statement says that they support the military, and the military is responsible for much of the U.S. deficit. Remember, it takes up well over half of the U.S. Government revenue. So it itself is a cause of the deficit.
Yeah, there's mercenaries.
And the
if
next
you
headline,
want to be a real liberty movement, get rid of Palin and look more to Ron Paul. In fact, get rid of the Republicans except Ron. You will find a lot of people don't like extremes.
Why are we determined to follow a foreign policy of empire building and preemption which is unbecoming of a constitutional republic? Those on the right should recall that the traditional conservative position of non-intervention was their position for most of the 20th century, and they benefited politically from the wars carelessly entered into by the left. 7 years ago, the right benefited politically by condemning the illegal intervention in Kosovo and Somalia. At the time, the right was outraged over the failed policy of nation building. It's important to recall that the left, in 2003, offered little opposition to the preemptive war in Iraq, and many are now not willing to stop it by defunding it or work to prevent an attack on Iran. The catch-all phrase, the war on terrorism, in all honesty, has no more meaning than if one wants to wage a war against criminal gangsterism. Terrorism is a tactic. You can't have a war against a tactic. It's deliberately vague and non-definable in order to justify and permit perpetual war anywhere and under any circumstances. Don't forget, the Iraqis and Saddam Hussein had nothing to do with any terrorist attack against us, including that on 9/11. Special interests and the demented philosophy of conquest have driven most wars throughout all of history. Rarely has the cause of liberty, as it was in our own revolution, been the driving force. In recent decades, our policies have been driven by neoconservative empire radicalism, profiteering in the military-industrial complex, misplaced do-good internationalism, mercantilistic notions regarding the need to control natural resources, and blind loyalty to various governments in the Middle East. For all the misinformation given the American people to justify our invasion, such as our need for national security, enforcing UN resolutions, removing a dictator, establishing a democracy, protecting our oil, the argument has been reduced to this: if we leave now, Iraq will be left in a mess, implying the implausible that if we stay, it won't be a mess. Since it could go badly when we leave, that blame must be placed on those who took us there, not on those of us who now insist that Americans no longer need be killed or maimed, and that Americans no longer need to kill any more Iraqis. We've had enough of both.
Where was this movement when the Fourth Amendment was being violated by the Patriot Act? The founders knew if you gave political leaders power like the Patriot Act, they will keep it. Just look at the airport incidents of TSA, especially with kids.
But did it have to be like this? Is there a better way?
In reality, what we as an agency should be doing, or employees, is looking at that child with a little bit of difference in how we handle the child.
James Marchand with the TSA would not comment specifically on the cell phone video, but he says some TSA screeners should follow some advice.
You try to make it as best you can for that child to come through. You ask the child to put their arms up in some way, and if you can come up with some kind of game that you're trying to play with the child, then